about y'all, but I'm fine. What you wanna do, what you got in mind? Would you mind if I rode my bike for a little while?
We are at the Child Welfare Office in Hilo, Hawaii, and I'm interviewing Albert. What's your last name?
Pacheco.
Pacheco. All right. Well, thank you for meeting with me today. This is for the Psychology 100 class and my domestic violence class, and I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you do, first of all, and what your job title is, and that sort of stuff.
Okay. So I work for the state. I'm considered a state social worker. I do primarily case management cases, so I have a caseload of families and children, and what happens is in our office we get reports of child abuse and neglect, and they come into our office. We confirm that, meaning that there's reason to believe that children are in jeopardy, their safety, their well-being, either by their parents or by a caregiver, that's like their primary caregiver, and we have to assess safety, and then if a safety is at a very high risk, then we will remove them and place them in foster care, hopefully with relatives. But a lot of the issues that we deal with is substance abuse, domestic violence, and some mental health issues, like if parents are mentally unable to care for their children. And then physical abuse, of course. And sometimes there are issues of sexual abuse, emotional or mental abuse.
You get calls from people in town, or is it?
We get
like
calls
counselors?
from mandated reporters, can be counselors at school that observe, either the kids report it, or we get calls on the weekends or weeknights. So there is a 1-800 intake line number, which is available 24/7, so 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the number is 1-800-494-3991. You can call in to a social worker, make a report, be anonymous, or you can state your name and your phone number if you want to be like a witness to where you can be interviewed later. So we have a lot of calls that get called into the hotline, is what we call it, and it gets assessed, what we call a risk matrix, and the risk matrix determines the level of severity. So at this office at the state, we get the most severe cases.
How does your job pertain to psychology? So you have to meet with the kids that...
So we meet with the kids that either have witnessed abuse, witnessed domestic violence, or are victims. So we meet with them regularly, interview them. We meet with the parents. We make assessments when we work with the parents. Sometimes we have to assess and make referrals for them to do a psychological evaluation, because we're concerned that their own mental state is affecting their ability to parent their children.
How do you get yourself ready for situations like that? Because some of them gotta be pretty crazy.
Yeah, sometimes if we know a situation is volatile, potentially volatile, where parents are either actively using ice, methamphetamines, then we'll take somebody else with us. If we have to do a removal from a family that we feel is going to be violent or potentially violent or using also, then we would have the police come with us and escort. And sometimes the police will, what we call PC, or take protective custody of the kids. So say for instance, an intake line, a neighbor is calling because the parents are fighting, and they hear a lot of screaming, a lot of crying, the kids are screaming, and they're concerned because there's been domestic violence in the past. So the neighbors call the intake line or call the police. The police come over, and the police can make an assessment. If they feel like the situation is not safe for the children, the police can take the kids right then and there from the parents. They have the authority to do that. So we get some of our cases from those situations.
Right now we're focusing on careers like in the psychology field.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that your job is dealing with psychology a lot?
Definitely a lot. Well, like I have my undergrad degree, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology.
Oh, see.
So it's very helpful to have that. It's just when you go into a career and your degree, say for instance, is psychology or sociology, that only preps you to be able to do the day-to-day work. But if I'm in a social work position, then I have to function as a social worker. But having my degree in psychology has helped me understand ways of approaching and working with people, working with communities, working with individuals and how they think, and maybe learning how not to take things so personal from clients that you work with. Because when in psychology, you also learn a lot about deflection, about people's thought process, about sometimes they want to like blame other people, and you kind of take all that factors into play when you're making an assessment.
What's one of the toughest cases that you've had to prepare yourself mentally for?
That's a pretty good question. I think they all have been difficult in their own way. I think the most difficult situation that I've come across is a child that was sexually abused, and the caregiver, which was her mom, didn't believe her and sided with the mom's boyfriend. So because what I saw that was devastating for me is, as parents, to be protective and to care for their kids, this mom basically made a choice that her boyfriend was more important than her daughter. And what was devastating was the effect that it had on the daughter. Because abuse comes in all forms, right? And normally you have a physical abuse, you have a bruise, but then things kind of work through therapy and our parents work it out. But to actually have a child be kind of like disowned or not believed and sent to live with other people, instead of the parent saying, you know what, I believe you, I'm going to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a more long-term kind of effect that child had to deal with. So that was pretty bad. I mean, there's been worse scenarios. I mean, kids being burnt, cigarette burns, kids being hit to the point where their face is so swollen that it looks disfigured. But of course, it's just bruising and like swollen, but it looks really bad. Some fairly in detail, maybe sex abuse that's really like on younger children here in Hilo. There's a lot of it that goes on. So, but for me, it's the day-to-day being able to work with the victims and getting them help that they need to kind of turn their life around.